Alright, so this guy named Stephen Thompson has sitting down with Amjad Taha, which is a United Arab Emirates journalist. And the title of this video is The Muslim Country That Rejected Radical Islam. There's a couple, supposedly, that do that. However, this is claiming to be the Muslim country that rejected radical Islam, which is kind of strange to me, because I think if a country punishes people for speaking up vocally about their own religion, then they are radical, but compared to regular Islam, this is actually quite the improvement. However, we'll be getting into stuff, I'm sure, as these guys talk.
Finally. Amjad, let's start with the differences between Islam here in the United Arab Emirates and the Islam that we see on our TV screens.
Okay, so the Islam you see on TV screens is murder. Oh wait, let me change this so then you guys don't hear my voice doubled. Perfect. So yeah, they murder people out in the open. They literally just kill people. They do public executions all the time for basically no crime. Things you would not consider crimes here. For example, the United Arab Emirates will imprison you instead of kill you for hand-holding. Yeah, if you hand-hold the wrong way, you may just be going to prison.
The Islam of radicalism that we see everywhere.
When you say on our TVs, I believe the West is what you mean. And on the West, what we see also, we are very shocked most.
I don't want anyone to get this confused. Just because you accept some Western values does not make you a Western country. You have to accept all Western values, the things that make the West great, such as freedom of speech. Unfortunately, places like Europe are no longer what I would consider Western countries. They have fallen. They have taken away people's rights. They have slowly allowed in these Eastern influences and are now controlling people what they can put in their lunches to not offend Muslims. These people also probably believe such things. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was any problems with eating pork while a non-Muslim man walks into the United Arab Emirates. That would not be shocking to me.
Most of the time, you see radical Islamists and Brotherhood who are former terrorists or terrorists themselves, but in the West they have been named as activists. Those who run away from justice in their own country, and those who committed a crime have been involved in various heinous acts such as rape and beheading and so on. All of those individuals right now, they live in the West as teachers, as lecturers, as doctors.
I'm so glad he brings this up, because this is one of the things that will cause the West to fall. Allowing Muslims into our country, especially those who kill, who rape, who behead people, who put babies in ovens and make their families watch. Those are some of the people we have in our country right now because we have allowed them to walk in.
And as protesters, as protesters who protest to glorify the Muslim Brotherhood, the armed forces at least of the Muslim Brotherhood, as we see after the 7th of October.
Yes, the 7th of October in Israel.
By that I mean Hamas. They glorify terrorism and all form of terrorism, and they do not respect the rules and the regulation of the countries that they say they went there and they had a refugee status there. And as they get the citizenship, they start recruiting the citizens of the West to become hostages of the Islamist propaganda.
Yeah. What he's saying is that they try to convert them into Islamic terrorists. Not that they are being converted into hostages, but they may be converted into hostages to a bomb strapped to their chest. That might be something they're held hostage of.
All the way in the Middle East, which their parents ran away from them and they went to the West and they became a citizen. However, this new generation of theirs, they start becoming the recruiters of those Islamists in the Middle East, and they're right now at a stage of making more lone wolves. And we saw that lone wolves policy of ISIS.
Just so we're clear, these people who didn't like the teachings of Islam stayed with the Muslim aspects, but left their country. Then their children actually read the Islamic texts, and they said, hey, these terrorists are actually doing what our religion tells us to do. So these new baby Muslims that are born in our country are seeing this as what they're supposed to be doing, and since they're not exposed to the graphicness of seeing all this stuff happen in person, they're not nearly as against it as their parents would have been, and they start advocating for doing it more. Despite the fact that their parents were so against it, these babies that are like 20 years old who have never actually seen this happen in person are now supporting it because it's what their text tells them to support.
A lot of those extremists who some were European went all the way and became members of ISIS in Iraq and Syria. They actually were members of the Green Lane Mosque, for example, or in Birmingham in UK, in Small Heath, or in Sheffield.
Yeah, Muslim isn't a race, very obviously. Muslim is just this terrorist designation. If you are a Muslim, then you have this text that tells you to become a terrorist. Well, yes, most Muslims are Middle Eastern. There are black Muslims, there are white Muslims, and they all have this text telling them to kill people, to rape women, to behead people, to stone people. And there's absolutely no way to say this text doesn't say to do that. It says to marry 6-year-olds and then wait until they're 9, until you actually consummate the marriage. Just so we're clear, there are pregnant 6-year-olds, there are pregnant 9-year-olds. And this is supported under Islam.
Or in West Sydney, Australia, or in Canada. So they were part of that civilized culture.
Yeah, they're civilized because they're not Muslim.
And that civilization, great civilization in the West. However, because of the scholars that Britain, Canada, or Australia, or any other country, ignoring or ignorance of the fact that this scholar is recruiting and is not speaking about religion, is actually using the space and the place in the West and the freedom of speech to make these children or these students or these people in the West.
As I was just saying with that other reporter, I think his name is something Hassan. Of course, half of their names have something Hassan in it. But the one that was just in the No Kings protest, literally my last video, yeah, they use the freedom of speech to recruit you into becoming a Muslim terrorist. That's what they do.
To become the hostage of the Islamist, and then later on to become the soldier that kills his own neighbor.
Well, that's the main purpose. If you won't kill your people, the Islamists have no reason to be okay with you.
I saw a really shocking statistic speaking about.
That's not just about Westerners. Islamists will kill their own people. All of them. If you are an Islamist, if you accept what they call radical Islam, what I call reading the damn book, You will kill your neighbors. Because that's what the book tells you to do.
Westerners who joined ISIS, more British citizens traveled to the Islamic State to fight in its ranks than joined the British Armed Forces.
Yeah, the numbers are huge.
More people are named Muhammad at birth than any other name. So yeah, they're going to be joining ISIS. They're going to be joining Hamas. They're going to be joining the Muslim Brotherhood, as they call it. Because they're Muslim. Because they hate your country. And they use the freedom of speech that you give them to say that they will destroy your country.
We're speaking about more than 7,000, I think, some of the Western who at least hold...
Just so we're clear, some of them are named Henry, okay? Like, I'm sure there's a Henry who has joined the Hamas Brotherhood, okay? I'm not saying that only the Muslims are doing this. But I am saying that they've invaded the Western culture. And that, you know, terrorism is in their book. If they bring a book over that they say is holy, they say is infallible, and then they say, hey, this book is absolutely correct, and will kill anyone who says they don't believe that, because that's what the book says, and it's okay to do, maybe you shouldn't let them into your country. Just wild thought. Maybe the people who worship a god, who want all other people murdered, shouldn't be let in your country.
A European passport.
Why do you think Islamism is finding such fertile soil in Europe?
Okay, he's going to say his things, but I want to say my things. The reason why is because we feel bad for the Crusades or something. So we were taught as children that the Crusades were an evil Christianity afflicted. So the Christians who don't do their own research, who don't know why the Crusades had to happen, who don't know why the Middle East went from a Christian place into a entirely Muslim place, why the Middle East spread, the people who don't know that are just saying, well, of course we can't just stop them. That's what the Crusades did. And they have no idea the Crusades were actually a defensive battle against a spreading Muslim nation that continues to try to spread its roots today. So the people who were stopped were the Muslims, and now the gates have gone down, so the Muslims are coming in. And also, the government is actually saying you can't criticize these people. The government is infiltrated by Muslims. If you say you cannot criticize a Muslim, you are advocating for Sharia. They basically have Sharia law in Europe already. Because you are literally being jailed for criticizing Islam. Okay, like, this is absolutely not okay. Like, these white nations are being, like, taken over. Oh, my model stopped. Why did my model stop? Come back. Come back. Okay, cool. I fixed it.
Two things. Well, various things, to be honest, not the two things. But the first thing is
It's a
the
lot
fact
of
that there is they abuse the freedom of speech. So what they do,
They no longer have freedom of speech, let's be clear. They're being jailed for criticizing Islam, which the United Arab Emirates also does, because they're Islamic.
they use the freedom of speech to justify anti-Semitism, for example.
Not only to justify anti-Semitism, because you can justify anti-Semitism in the United Arab Emirates, as far as I'm aware. But also in the United Arab Emirates, you can't criticize Islam. It's illegal. You will be jailed, or deported, or fined. In other Islamic countries, you will just be killed. However, it is still Sharia, either way, and Europe is being taken over by Sharia law.
Example. And they turn the anti-Semitism to become an opinion rather than a crime.
Well, anti-Semitism is not a crime in a place with freedom of speech. If you have freedom of speech, anti-Semitism alone isn't a crime. And I love my Semitic brothers. I think Israel should continue to exist. I love Jews. I think they should turn to Christ, however. But I do love Jews. I think they're great people. Well, some of them, like Anthony Fauci, is a horrible dog abuser who wants to kill a lot of people. But that's mostly because he's a leftist and not because he's a Jew. The Jewish people are typically very good people if they're not leftists. However, it's not a crime to be anti-Semitic. You can be anti-Semitic. It's fine. Acting on your anti-Semitism by killing Jews is wrong and a crime.
Sure.
So that space of freedom, but the fact that Europeans or the West need to understand these Islamists right now, they know the error. They know this problem that you're having. Yes, the problem is not with the freedom of speech. The problem is that there is an evil inside your society.
There's a lot of evil in our society, especially with the gays, which, by the way, it's illegal to be gay in the United Arab Emirates. You can't cross-dress in the United Arab Emirates. The only places you can are highly tourist places because they understand that you might want to and that it's okay in most other countries that are Western civilized. However, if you leave Dubai, if you leave the big cities like Abu Dhabi, you will immediately be jailed and fined for cross-dressing, for being gay, for hand-holding in public, and being gay.
Now is becoming a member of your society, using that policy of freedom of speech to abuse it and to destroy your society, to
Yes, that's exactly what they do.
destroy your universities. At one point, universities such as Harvard University, Oxford University, and those prestigious universities, people in the East and the West, they want to become a member of, or they want to study or teach there. Right now, when I remember Harvard University, I remember protests where Jewish students get persecuted.
Yeah, so in Harvard, people were literally prevented from going to classes. Students were not allowed to walk onto campus, and the explicit reason was they were Jewish. That should be a crime. You're stopping someone from doing something that they paid for due to what they happen to believe, when their beliefs are as simple as, like, Jesus isn't God, but everything else in Christianity is right. For the most part. Like, all the Old Testament stuff is true. However, like, maybe we shouldn't stone people. Like, Jews don't deserve that. Islamists do, actually. Islamists do deserve that. We shouldn't allow Islamists onto campus. However, they're doing it to Jews, which don't hold any difference of opinion than traditional Christians in our today society. These Orthodox Jews, these other Jew people that aren't like Jewish supremacists, obviously. Jewish supremacists are also awful people. Agnostic Jews that are just claiming the race of Jew, they're pretty bad. The black movement that thinks they're Jewish are pretty weird. I don't like them either. To be completely honest, I don't really like them. But, you know, these people who are just regular Jews, they're just like white Jews who don't have any Islamic, like, beliefs or self-righteous beliefs. They're being stopped from going onto campus. While the Islamic people who want everyone else in the classroom dead or imprisoned are allowed to go in. And the Jews that just want to go in are being stopped.
Be swore at, be insulted.
Yeah.
It's a place, as much as I see from the images recently, for
To be clear, the insults shouldn't be a crime.
For riots,
Rioting is a crime.
for people insulting each other, for
Insulting each other is not a crime.
teachers get attacked,
Attacking people is a crime.
or having a different perspective or opinion, people fighting, people with
People fighting is a crime.
masks covering their faces with flags.
Yeah, the Hamas flag and the ISIS flag and Antifa flag. Yeah, these things are all in there. The Palestine flag. Yeah.
Of terrorists, Hamas, Hezbollah, and all this. So they turned the place of education and knowledge to a war zone. When that happens,
Yeah.
your civilization is either going down or it's breaking.
It is breaking. And the problem is Islamic forces entering the nation and gay people going along with it.
And it's breaking under your observation.
And the black people. The black people are also, for some reason, going along with it. There's less, reason for the black people not to, except for, general rules that black people don't like to follow, like dress modestly. They typically don't like to do that.
Not allowing it to happen. You can put rules and regulation. Deport those Islamists. Do not let them harm your children. Do not let them harm your.
By the way, when I say dress modestly, I mean what he is wearing.
Society, your community. Do not let them be the people who wake up on the 8th of October, for example, and tell you to boycott challah, attack a Jewish restaurant just for being a Jew.
Yeah, don't attack a restaurant. That's illegal. However, it's happening and people aren't being criminalized.
And they justify it and they allow it. Don't be.
Yeah,
this is
don't
your
allow
country.
that.
This is your civilization.
Don't allow them to come in. Why are we allowing them to come in? I get it. Sometimes we say, hey, these people are in trouble and they need help. 3,000 people in one country? You can spread out a little bit. You don't need 3,000 Muslims in your country. You don't need 300 Muslims in every single European country. They can go somewhere else. Notice how they don't go to Africa. Notice how they don't go to all these other places that are not first world countries. They always go to first world countries. They always go to the West. And they say, oh, we're fleeing from persecution. We might die if we stay where we are. You can go anywhere else. Go somewhere else. Because we can't handle all of you here. Because you're destroying our society. And you're turning it into the very one that wanted to destroy you. That's the good faith argument, that this is just happening to happen and it's not a coordinated attack. However, it is a coordinated attack against the West. We shouldn't be allowing it.
You pointed out deportations, which I obviously couldn't agree more with. However, one of the structural problems that we have in Europe, certainly Western Europe, all the data that I have seen points to the fact that second and third generation migrants are much more likely to be radicals.
Yeah, because they haven't seen the terrorist agenda with their own eyes. They haven't seen babies being thrown in ovens. They haven't seen men and women getting their heads blown off for denying Islam. They haven't seen that.
Than first generation migrants.
Right, because you can't let them in. You can't let them settle down. If you're a migrant who escaped from persecution, you shouldn't be a citizen of the country. Not necessarily, especially if you believe in a text that is antithetical to the beliefs of our country.
Which means that if we're talking about France, many of the migrants are obviously from the Maghreb region, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. In the UK, many come from Pakistan, Somalia.
Oh, Somalia is actually passing some pretty interesting laws right now. They're actually making it so you can't marry people under 18. And Muslims who are like 74 are crying because their 7-year-old wives are going to be taken away.
The second and third generation is more likely to be radicalized, and they are already citizens.
Yeah, you can't let Muslims in your country become citizens. You can't.
Now, how do you deal with a radicalized second or third generation migrant that you cannot deport because he is a citizen of your country?
Yeah, with those you change the rules and the regulation.
Yeah, you change the rules and regulations. They're not citizens if they support the death of your country. Get them out.
When it comes to radicalization, for example, one great example of this is the fact that why did they become radical?
Because their parents supported Islam. They saw Islamic text, and they said, hey, Islamic texts say that we should be radical.
I would say there's many reasons.
Right. They're exposed to Islamic texts. That's the main reason.
One of which is they do have their own, they start separating themselves from the rest of the country and the rest of the community.
Right. That's what happens in the melting pot. See, the problem with the melting pot ideology, you can see it in any high school you go into. You can see it in most kindergartens you go to. You walk in the doors and you see at the lunch tables where they have complete freedom of where they want to sit, there's a Mexican table, there's an El Salvadorian table, there's a white table, there's a black table, there's a ghetto black table, there's a popular kids table, which is usually white kids and like 1 or 2 Mexicans, at least where I'm from in Texas. There's very specific niches that each group fit. And it's not okay. Like, these people will not integrate with each other because they don't have a common history. And you can say all you want, well, racism wasn't a problem. However, I would bet 40, 50 years ago, you still had white people sitting together, black people sitting together, and the occasional person would mix in. I'm not saying that people in high school don't have black friends. I am saying that it's rare for a white person to sit down with a large group of black people and it not be a little awkward for the white person. It's typical that you're going to find the people who you agree with the most, and that's going to be people who look like you, and you're going to sit with them. And you're going to hear them, and they're going to radicalize you. Because that's what the melting pot does. We're starches. We like to get on to each other, and we suck each other up, and we get into one big blob. That's what happens.
1. 2, they start having those schools, what we call the jihadist school of Saturday, Sunday, so on weekend. Now,
yeah, especially places that they go on weekends. Because then there's no one to overhear them. So whenever they sing about, decapitating the infidel, which they do sing about in Muslim mosques, there's no one there to stop them and say, hey, what about me? I'm like your friend, dude. So they totally denounce their friends when they're alone. When they're only with the people who they like. They say, well, yeah, obviously he's not a Muslim, so I would kill him, duh.
Why did the government allow those scholars to be the scholars of those mosques? If the scholar does not support coexistence, peace, prosperity, and tolerance, he should not be that teacher.
Well, he shouldn't be in the country
Of that new generation.
Yeah, if you're supporting beheading people because of a difference of religion, you shouldn't be in a country whose religion differs from yours.
Because what that student goes, or that person when he attends the mosque, is going there for the knowledge, for spirituality and so on. Now when you have the scholar himself is the evil, the result of that is that conduct of evil which the individual himself will carry and do.
Yeah, essentially, well, this is a really bad way to say it. When your instructors are evil, evil will be rewarded. And when evil is rewarded, you think evil is good. It's that simple. It's not just that, though. Obviously, when an adult tells you to do something evil, and you're reading it in your religious text, and you see it there, and it says it's good, and all your friends are saying it's good, because you segregate yourself into Muslim communities, and all of this says it's good, and then your safe spaces where the police can't go all say it's good to rape women, guess what? You're going to do it. It's what you're going to do. That's why so many Muslims are raping women in Europe. That's why so many 13 to 14-year-old kids have to bring axes around so then they feel safe in Europe.
Change for that is the educational system. So there need to be first look into those.
Grab a Muslim. Now grab a rock. The Muslim is afraid of the rock.
Mosque, look into the societies, bring them more to close to each other, that they need to have a lot of activities together and so on. And also, why is it the fact that a person that lives in Dubai, a Muslim person from the same background of the person that lives in France or in UK, third, fourth generation here, they're still open mind, they're still Muslim.
Not really. I mean, they don't kill people, but they still live under Sharia law. It's not as harsh as the Sharia law other places. However, it is still Sharia law, and they can justify that. However, there are people in your country who actually read the Islamic text, and they do think that, maybe we should go a little bit harder. And I would bet you in the next 50 years, the United Emirates will face that. The United Arab Emirates will face this problem. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be in the next 20 years. But eventually they'll see you as not radical enough. The same thing happened in Iran in 1979, where feminists were rising up. And Islam used those feminists to say, hey, we should vote in Islamic people. We should do this. And then Islam took over the nation, and now it's a heavily Islamic nation that does not recognize any other religion, that refuses to give people rights, and will kill you if you do the wrong thing. That's just how it goes. The fact the United Arab Emirates isn't doing that right now is only because they like immigration and they like to make money off of people who like to go there to Dubai. Once you stop making tourist money, you're done. As soon as your main source of income is anything other than tourism, you'll become terrorists.
Muslim, they're still conservative, yet they're not radical. They're not supporters or glorifiers of terrorists. But a person who is a Muslim living all the way in France or Britain is more radicalized and is more, there is more likely that he's going to become a member of the ISIS.
Yeah, because there's no Sharia law there, technically. They don't recognize it as Sharia. They don't have that ability to say, hey, this is our people. So they are they're more easily said, these are not our people, we should kill them. When you're in the United Arab Emirates, you're more likely to say, these are our people, they're just not good enough. You don't want to kill your own people as much as you want to kill people who aren't your people. For instance, when I talk about leftists that are born American citizens, I'm not talking about them as enemies. I'm talking about them as confused. Right up until the moment where they start saying things like, we should, support Gaza, I think that's an enemy nation. Gaza is an enemy nation. Period. Palestine is an enemy of the United States. And in that regard, not only are they confused, but they're supporting the enemy. However, when I see a Palestinian come here and they say, I hate America, that's an enemy. It's the same thing with the Muslims that go to France. The France allows in these Muslims and they say, okay, you guys can do whatever you want. And the Muslims say, wait a minute, this isn't Sharia law. And you're not Muslim. You're not my friends. I should kill you. That's what my book says to do.
Sort of Muslim Brotherhood terrorist organization is the fact that the West, up to this point, the media is justifying.
Just so we're clear, I'm not denouncing the fact that Muslims kill each other en masse in more radical Islamic places, because they do. They will kill Muslims for any slight against their honor. However, it's much more easy to say that it's okay if the people in charge are anti-terrorist, which they won't be forever. Eventually you're going to get a terrorist in office and everything's going to go downhill. It's easier to say that, you shouldn't become terrorists when the people in charge are Muslim.
The existence of, for example, Islamic Relief as a charity organization in UK or in the West. Why? It's not a charity organization. It's a foundation or an organization that steals the money from the West, the pockets of the people who are willing to help. Yet it takes that money and it gives it to organizations, terrorist organizations in the Middle East, under the name of a school and hospitals. But those schools are run by actual Islamist terrorists.
Yeah, they are.
Who fund and support even Hamas.
You
cannot be Muslim more than me. You will not be more Arab than I. So why is it that I banned the Muslim Brotherhood and you haven't? Why is it the fact that Islamic Relief is banned in UAE and is banned in Mecca, but is allowed in Paris and in London?
Because white people are pussies. White people have become pussies. We've seen our own success. We've seen the fact that we created the nuclear bomb. And we said, hey, maybe we are the bad guys. Maybe we are the bad guys. And then we started becoming gay. Then we started becoming weak. Then we started becoming pathetic. Then we started questioning our basic fundamental morals, like, are men women? And white people have fallen. The white nations are dying because we made the nuclear bomb and we started feeling bad for everyone. We can't just start feeling bad for people. Some people deserve to be destroyed. Like Japan in World War II. Like Islam, who murder, rape, destroy, and conquer as much as they want, whoever they want. They need to be destroyed. They can't be left alone.
So there's a lot of questions to be asked.
Yeah, I think there's many more questions that we will explore in a follow-up to this. This has been a very good warm-up session.
Thank you.
For an upcoming series of videos with Amjad. Amjad, thank you so much.
Maybe we'll see the rest of those series at some point. Who knows, honestly. This was back in June 20th of 2025, so this is quite the old video. I don't know if he's made any more. Maybe I'll check those out in another video. But until next time, you guys have a blessed day. And remember, don't advocate for violence. None of the words said here were advocating for violence. Please like and subscribe. See ya!